Hello, Ms. Soldman's 6th period APES class. Today we'll be talking about biodiversity and species interaction. Our group is Carla Rivas, Kayla Phelps, and James Wayne. First, we will be talking about keystone species. A keystone species is a plant or animal that plays a unique and crucial role in the way an ecosystem functions. Without keystone species, the ecosystem would be dramatically different or cease to exist altogether. As you can see, the stone in the middle is the keystone species, and without it, the whole structure would fall apart. These are examples of keystone species. A keystone species disappearance would start a domino effect. Other species in the habitat would also disappear and become extinct. The keystone species disappearance could affect other species that rely on it for survival. For example, the population of deer or rabbits would explode without the presence of a predator, such as a mountain lion. The ecosystem cannot support an unlimited number of animals, and the deer soon compete with each other for food and water resources. Their population usually declines without a predator, such as the mountain lion. A sea otter is another example of a keystone species in the Pacific Northwest. These mammals feed on sea urchins, controlling their population. If the otters didn't eat the urchins would eat up the habitat's kelp. Kelp, or giant seaweed, is a major source of food and shelter for the ecosystem. Some species of crabs, snails, and geese depend on kelp for food. Many types of fish use the huge kelp forests to hide from predators. Without sea otters to control the urchin population, the entire ecosystem would collapse. Next, we have indicator species. An indicator species is a plant or animal that is very sensitive to the environmental changes in its ecosystem. This means it is affected almost immediately by damage to the ecosystem and can give early warning that a habitat is suffering. Damage from external influences such as water pollution, air pollution, or climate change first appear in indicator species. As an example, we have fish and aquatic invertebrates, which have commonly been surveyed as indicators of water quality and the health of aquatic ecosystems. If a site has populations of so-called sewage worms or tubificids, for example, this almost always suggests that water quality has been degraded by inputs of sewage or other oxygen-consuming organic matter. Tubificid worms can tolerate virtually anoxic water, in contrast with most of the animals of unpolluted environments such as mayflies and stoneflies, which require well-oxygenated conditions. Birds are affected by environmental changes such as the loss of fragmentation of their habitats and the intro of chemical pesticides. Butterflies also have association with various plants that make them vulnerable to habitat loss and fragmentation. Yet another example of indicator species is lichens. They are found almost everywhere and at all seasons. They absorb nutrients and pollutants from the air, often to high concentrations. They have different species which show different sensitivities and accumulation abilities, and they are symbiotic organisms. The fungus cannot survive if the algae is killed by pollution. Now we have invasive species, which are plants, animals, or pathogens that are non-native or alien to the ecosystem under consideration and whose introduction causes or is likely to cause harm. They can harm the environment, the economy, or even human health. Species that grow and reproduce quickly and spread aggressively with potential to cause harm are given the label of invasive. Africanized honeybees are a hybrid between European and African bee subspecies, which were inadvertently released in Brazil in the 1950s. They have spread to the south as far as northern Argentina and to the north into the United States, as well as throughout much of South and Central America. Our next example is the Burmese python. Threats caused by the Burmese python include preying on native species and outcompeting native species for food or other resources. They also can cause or carry disease and prevent native species from reproducing. Now we have endangered species, which are those considered to be at risk of extinction, meaning there are so few left of their kind that they could disappear from the planet altogether. Endangered species are threatened by factors such as habitat loss, hunting, disease, and climate change, and usually endangered species have a declining population or a very limited range. An example of this is the Amur leopard. Due to extensive habitat loss and conflict with humans, the situation concerning the Amur leopard is critical. However, the fact that its more eminent cousin, the Amur tiger, recovered from a precarious state of fewer than 40 individuals some 60 to 70 years ago gives conservationists hope. It is believed that the Amur leopard can be saved from extinction if the present conservation initiatives are implemented, enhanced, and sustained. Factors that affect endangered species include habitat loss and habitat fragmentation, hunting and poaching, invasive species, climate change, which includes drought, ocean acidification, the loss of sea ice, and an increase in storms and extreme weather events can all threaten these species' survival. There's disease and pollution, which can include acid rain, heavy metals, pesticides, plastic waste, and oil spills. Generalist species are species with a broad ecological niche that can live in many different places, eat a variety of foods, and tolerate a wide range of environmental conditions. Examples include flies, cockroaches, mice, rats, and humans. Specialist species have a narrow ecological niche. They may be able to live in only one type of habitat, tolerate only a narrow range of climatic and other environmental conditions, or use only one type or a few types of food, such as the koala, who only eats a certain type of plant. And the panda, who only eats bamboo. Lastly, what we wish we learned more about this year are certain acts which help our environment, such as the Endangered Species Act, which identifies threatened and endangered species in the U.S. and puts their protection ahead of economic considerations.